Good afternoon. It is 1 o'clock on Monday, March 11th, 2019, and we are here for the Beavercreek Township Board of Trustees regular meeting, and we will begin with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have an agenda before us. Do we have any additions or modifications?
Hearing no additions or modification, I would move to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Mr. Kretz from today's regular trustee meeting.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $349,724.35 for the 2/27/19 payroll.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
I also would like to make a motion to accept the payment listing report in the amount of $294,544.93 for warrants through March 7th of 2019.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
I know minutes, but I just,
Do-
are there any changes or
I had nothing.
changes on the minutes? I made a correction that I already told the fiscal officer, so I would make a motion to approve February 24th, 2019 regular meeting minutes
As amended.
as
Where is
amended.
it? Show me where it is real quick, just so I can. I don't know where you talked about it.
All right, hold on.
We can come back afterwards if that makes
Yeah, it wasn't on the same, it's right here in the beginning, pre-scheduled speakers. Request information on chloroform to be sent to. Yeah,
Okay.
All right, I'll second.
Just as a clarification, it's the February 25th.
that's what I said.
You said
Is it 24th?
Oh, 25th. Wow. that's way
Well,
up.
I'll second all those modifications.
We'll make it the 25th. Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, now we will open it up to pre-scheduled speakers. Mr. Administrator?
Thank you, Board. First item on the pre-scheduled speaker, we'll hear from Stryker. We'll take a little break and then go out and look at the product and then reconvene back in here. This is just reviewing, as you know, we received the BWC grant for the Stryker Power Cot system. I know Ms. Wallace was able to see it during a presentation with the Fire Ops 101. So now that we have the grant, we'd like to show it to you and then we'll proceed. I'm sorry. Trish is up here.
Well, I'm just up here because Steve Rennicks and Chris Ferguson both worked very, very hard on this grant. You know, I had a small portion, but they really worked hard on it. And unfortunately, Steve is on a call. He was going to be here, so he still may come in, you know, as we go through this. But Ross can tell you a little bit about how the lift works, and then we can, like Alex said, take a break, and then we can show you outside,
Great.
so you get a full visual.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations, and Trish played a tremendous role in it. I mean, she was downplaying that for sure, with getting the grant. You know, outside I've got the cot and the load system which you guys are looking at. You know, I could kind of talk till I'm blue in the face about it, but I mean, I think visually seeing it will do a lot more wonders than me talking about it. But, you know, a brief overview of it, it's gonna be a fastener that's going to secure the cot into the back of the ambulance much better than what you guys currently have. It's also going to allow for you guys, or for the caregivers, to not have to lift up as much. It's going to be all mechanical instead of them manually lifting up the patients. So, you know, that being said, I mean, that's it in a nutshell, but I'd love to show you guys the actual product.
Yeah.
whenever you guys are ready.
Yeah,
So-
we'll do it.
Yeah,
Right now?
so we'll just take a quick break and we'll continue here momentarily. All right, we will go back live. Thank you for that quick break. Next on the agenda, we have any citizens desiring to speak? Welcome, perfect timing.
Yeah, a little bit tired. I walk all the way from the senior center.
Oh my goodness.
You have like a projector to put out on your, no?
No, I can share it with them.
Oh, you can share. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you have to go up to the podium.
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
That's fine, you do that. Alright.
So we'll ask you to state your name and address for the record, and then you will have 3 minutes
Okay,
to,
I'm not gonna talk that long.
okay,
Very simple. My name is George Rushlow. My address is 1884 North Longview Street in the city of Beavercreek. And my issue is just plain and simple, is pedestrian sidewalk in and around the Beavercreek Library, which the township owns the property. From 2014 all the way to 15 and 16, I talked to everybody from the governor office, the district office in Dayton, all the way down to local official back then to put pedestrian sidewalk around Beavercreek, both city and township. My subject today is only for the library area, as concerns you guys. Back in that time, for the 3 years, I did talk to the property manager of the township and one other person, I don't remember who. They mentioned at the time that they were gonna add the subject to their list of priorities back then, but I was also told that the township was real tight on funds for the next 4 or 5 years. Now we're 5 years down the road. The city of Beavercreek already just got done their sidewalk/walkway along Dayton's Near Road in front of the library. I just provided you a letter here, or 1 page, that gives 5 options to put sidewalk around the library. Starting from 1 to 5, 1 is the easiest and cheapest, to 5, which like mostly you're not gonna get done because that deals with property right-of-way that the city or the township gonna have to acquire like a small section to connect the parking lot to Mendleton Lane, which connects to Marietta Drive. And that's basically it. And I provided a copy of the picture of the library, which you probably got on your files here. And that's basically it. If you have any questions, I can answer a few, whatever. Now, I did talk about the subject with Carl. He's the director of the Greene County Public Library in Xenia. Carl, I don't remember his last name.
clone.
And then also this subject was talked to the head librarian of Beavercreek, but we just got a brand new head librarian. And I did meet her one time and she is aware of this subject.
Okay,
And then my one last question is, have you guys talked about that? Brought the subject up in the past, because this is my first time here. I know I'm not part of your meeting. And then what's the status of this subject?
okay.
That's it.
All right, we appreciate your time. Actually, that was good, right on it. So, you know, this is a new topic. We will take this information under advisement.
That's
and
good.
we will, we'll ask our administrator to look into it.
Okay,
And then, you know, we'll give it all the due diligence that it deserves. And
Okay.
then at some point, either Mr.
Yeah.
Zahariff or Mr. Parks
yeah.
would be back in touch
If
with
they
you.
make a photocopy of this front envelope, it has all my information and my email, so they can send me a message if they want to. All right,
Yeah.
just photocopy that top page.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm done. Thank you.
Very good. We appreciate you coming in. You're always welcome.
Yeah, now I gotta walk back. showed a little bit here. Yeah. To connect the Mendoza and yeah. It's probably highly unlikely, but.
Yeah, you should start. Took about 40 minutes.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, I see no old business, no new business. Administrator.
Thank you, Board. First item is on page 4, has a new credit card policy. So there's no read outs or changes since it's all new. This is a new requirement under the state law that we have a credit card policy in place, and you'll see the attached forms. This has been reviewed by legal with any recommended changes based on the law that was passed. I do have a motion there. What will happen at this point, if the board does move forward with it, we will come back with an authorized user list for per the policy to vote on.
I had a couple questions.
Okay.
I just want to make sure, Dawn, that in there, I mean, when I open up a bank account, I have authority to have a credit card. So everything in here is pretty much board opens up or board. I'm just wondering if you might want to go back and do and/or fisc officer, since it's not the board that typically opens up or does that.
And that was one of my questions, if the fiscal office had seen it before today.
Well, I mean, I saw it in the packet. Jan's been involved with the conversations. I know it's been going on, and there was a lot of discussion at conference, so I'm fully aware of it. But it would be more likely that I would be the one that would be in a position of getting the credit card. I don't want to
No,
take
that
the
makes sense.
board away from it, but probably and/or should be added.
No, sure, I think that makes sense.
Okay, and then my second question was, there was a lot of discussion at conference as to what constituted a credit card. And so I am saying I do not feel comfortable making that decision, and I would want legal or some kind of recommendation to come in and say, okay, we're gonna determine that these are credit cards. Because is that when you walk into Ace Hardware and you have an account and somebody buys a part? Because at conference, that's what they made it sound like.
Seeing things I've read have been that that's
Not
not
a
what,
card, right.
that's not
Oh, because I
considered a
had
credit card.
questions
But I
on
do
that.
think that part of the problem is that the statute was not
questions on
entirely
this one.
clear in the way that it's written.
Or if we get you some kind of vendor list, or how could we do to, I just want a comfort level that we're not misrepresenting any account, you know.
Yeah,
I
and
just-
in my session, I asked that very question, and the attorney that was doing our class said, no, it just is for actual open credit card accounts. It doesn't include if you have open accounts where you can go buy a part as a listed vendor.
And I was in 3 sessions where the people said the opposite.
Yeah.
And
I
that's,
mean, I think it makes sense to have, I don't know, I might be speaking out of school, it probably makes sense to have a list of at least those other accounts in which there are, you know, open lines of credit or something along those lines. But I don't necessarily have a problem if there's a list of something that you all want me to review to give you an opinion as to what I think under the statute constitutes the credit card.
I just think that since it's so gray, it might help us to be ahead of the game, so to speak, to say that we took into due diligence looking at these and talking to legal, and these were the ones that we determined, and that's why we did it that way.
Yeah,
So if that would be a possibility, I would like to.
yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we will
I'll bring it back.
table that and bring it back. All right. Moving on.
Thank you, Board. I have a resolution on the next item here. It's in your packet. I do have a clean copy here for you to sign. Is for the reappropriation of funds out of the fire engine fund to the fire fund and then reallocate money back into the new ambulance fund.
I had a question about this too.
Yep, questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question on our spending in the fire department. And, if we have, there's been monies appropriated in these funds and we're just transferring in a different fund code.
We're
We're
transferring,
not touching any of our reserve for the fire station.
no, this is coming
That's-
out of the ALS fire engine fund.
Okay.
And then putting back in and then reallocating some of that money into the ambulance fund to cover the cost of the new medic.
Then what was the documentation here? It said something about the safer.
Well, they originally
Right.
removed, we're moving the full amount out of the fund that you created last meeting.
Okay.
Just create and we're putting the full amount of that money that covers the 3 years. And that was based on recommendation of the auditor's office and I believe the grant.
So we're taking the safer money
FEMA.
that we have as a grant, and we're creating a separate account
Correct. in
to be
fund.
paid out of that, so that we'll have a good,
Accounting.
transparency on what is coming out of that account for payroll for the safer grant people.
Correct.
Okay.
You're taking money out of an account that was set up for
Fire.
a piece of equipment, and you're transferring it to the safer grant to pay for the salaries for the people that you've,
Because we,
Transferring it to the fire fund.
because we don't get the safer
Well,
grant
but
money
then-
till after the
Right.
fact.
And then when we get the safer grant money back, we'll move that from,
And once the grant's over, there's any funds left over in the grant fund will be then transferred back to the fire. fund.
No, because the safer grant money pays in the
Correct,
future.
but once the grant period's over, if there are any funds left over after the 3 years of the grant, that we eliminate that fund, the safer grant fund, and it will go back into the fire fund.
I understand that part. What I'm saying is, if we put this, we're taking money from our budget into, a line item for the safer grant.
No, you're taking the money, so the money that you took out of the fire fund for the safer grant created a shortfall in the fire fund. So we're taking the ALS fire engine fund, because we're not buying any more fire engines,
And we're taking that
Yes.
and putting it back into.
putting it back in, and then we're gonna take some of that money back out and put it into the EMS fund to cover the cost of the new medic, or the EMS ambulance fund.
We don't have enough money at this time to buy a new ambulance.
We're a little short in that fund. There's 253, and I think the medic is 3 something.
I guess what my issue is I wanna make sure we have a clear accounting, transparency on the money, cause it's gonna be confusing, cause we spend money on salary for the safer grant people. We don't get that money, we get it reimbursed from the grant to us after we spent the money.
Correct.
So I wanna make sure that that money has a clear accounting to go back into the safer grant, so I don't wanna get things so confused that we don't know how much came in from the grant, how much they owe us, and then how to pay ourselves back. Cause this money is paying us in the future for the safer grant people.
No, the safer grant, so when you see the funds, when you see a report on all the funds, you'll see a new fund number like you approved at the last meeting. I forget the fund number, but that will show the full amount of the grant that we owe.
Okay,
Okay, so that you'll actually see, so the bottom 9 positions will be paid out of that.
okay,
With the 75, 75, and 35 the last year of the grant.
okay.
and then the reimbursements will go back into that
That
account.
account.
That account, not
Right.
anywhere else, so that like at the end of the 3 years, if there is any money left, then
Then we
whatever
can
money,
transfer it
then it
back.
can come back to
Right.
the,
ALS,
no, then it'll come back to the fire
Fire
department.
fund.
to
Okay.
so
1192.
theoretically, that 35, that's what will be,
We're putting our obligation,
Yeah.
our obligation, not.
we have to have our obligations separated.
Yeah.
Correct.
right.
And we're
okay.
showing the full obligation of the 3 years of the grant.
Yeah,
So,
we're
which
showing
has
our
created the
obligation
shortfall
plus
in the fire
theirs.
fund.
Right, well, I just wanna make sure
Yeah.
we're transparent. on
This was
Well,
worked out
that's
amongst
a
staff in
very
the
good
fiscal
question.
office to, how much to transfer and where to transfer it from.
And then I would expect that fiscal will let us know if there's anything in the red or anything that's going on, you're gonna keep us a signal on what's happening on that.
You're gonna get a lot more information on fire, because fire is what's gonna run so very tight this year.
And that's just the nature of the beast because
Right,
of where we're
You're
at.
downspending your tax budget,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
But you've also added, 19, 18 new firefighters that weren't anticipated when we started the tax. So you know, it is tight, so keep asking the questions. I don't have a problem with what the resolution's doing, however, there are steps missing that I think make it unclean. That, my understanding is it's not a, absolute to have it be passed today, and I would recommend not passing it because it's not complete for audit. It doesn't show, it leaves money and transfers in, it doesn't show that it's going to salaries, it doesn't show that it came from contingencies. It's, yeah, I'm not comfortable with it, I'm not comfortable following it, so it just needs to be cleaned up, that's my only.
Where'd we get this? Where'd we get this? Jan, was this from
No,
where it
Jan
was
didn't.
recommended, or?
Right, I provided, the information to David.
Okay.
She provided some of it, and then, but David, we've worked on these in the past, I mean, it just skips steps, it's not a clean, it's just not a
So
clean
what,
trail.
so let me ask you this,
That's
so
all.
we're clear, what steps are missing?
The money has to show that it's coming from contingencies.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. And I'm gonna try to read it without my glasses. You know, it just says that you're transferring from transfers out. Well, there is no money in transfers out right now. You have to move money to transfers out. So there's no step there. And then from transfers out to transfers in. I don't mind cleaning it up. I don't mind helping at all. There's just some steps in there that for audit, with this amount of money for what you're doing and the questions that you're asking, I just think that it would be cleaner. That's my.
Well, then I think we should,
My understanding is that per the fiscal office's resolution to the board, that the legal level of control for the board of trustees for budget purposes is the fund transfer level. The appropriations by the board are at the fund level. So all appropriations at the program and below level do not need board authorization. So the reappropriation into transfers out from wherever it comes from and from transfers in to wherever it's going to do not need board authorization per the resolution that was passed by the board for appropriations. That's why this is simply a transfer resolution.
I
If
understand that. I am not, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, but
you just
you're,
don't wanna follow it,
I was gonna answer the question, but,
I don't have a question, I'm sorry.
the issue is you're moving over $1 million from something that it wasn't discussed before. I'm just trying to make it clear because when the auditors come in, they're gonna see that you're correct at the fund level, they don't have to see it. But the auditors are gonna wanna see, well, where did the money come from? Where is it going? It's going 2 different places. It's going to, the fire fund. Some of it's going to the, ambulance fund, EMS fund. It's just a little more complicated and new. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you put your steps as to where you took the money so that it's just clean? And to be perfectly honest with you, we're gonna bring permanent appropriations back before the board. And I am strongly recommending not staying at fund level. And I won't, and in fact, I will, it should not even be on the table. But that's my opinion, but that's where it is. But that's a lot of money to do something for a new fund, for a new grant that goes multiple different places. What's the harm in adding 3 little sentences and bringing it back? I'm happy to do it myself, if you send it to me.
I think that would be excellent. So, as a matter of fact, my understanding was these resolutions would come from the fiscal office.
No, this is your fire department, and that's why you get paid your salary to manage
All right,
the
well,
budget.
Well,
We'll send you the
we don't need to go
information.
there. I mean, that's,
So,
I would say that why don't we just get this cleaned up a little bit more?
and if, and
pen
Ms.
it.
Aaron's, if you're willing, I say great. And what I would encourage you, if we have things like this and there's that work between the departments that seems to be going well, I would just ask that in the future, if you have this suggestion because you saw it beforehand, just offer to clean it up before it comes to us.
I just did see it, and Jan worked with you. I'm not taking anything away from the work that Jan did or the discussion. This is nothing, this is me. This is just me saying that, you know, what is the harm in making it clean for something like that?
If
That's
you're
all.
willing to do it and it's okay if it waits,
Yeah, the timing was at the board, or at the fiscal office's request, so.
Yeah, well, let's
okay?
just clean
And
it
that
up.
still works? Jan, Christie?
Yep. Yep.
So thank you for cleaning that up and I appreciate
get it
the
back to us.
information. Okay. Moving on, Mr. Zaharit.
Thank you, Board. On page 15 is the biweekly report for the Sheriff's Office, followed by the monthly report on page 34. Are there any questions?
I
Ms.
think
Wallace?
I had a question on, again, I wanna make sure that the citizens are aware, we have so much more business checks, I mean, 3 times what we've had in the past. So what is this in result of? Then we have more people on board?
Actually, not necessarily. So when I received this report, specifically, you get to the part that it says 2019, so far in 2019, whatever that number is substantially bigger than the numbers in 2018.
Correct.
It is the 2018 numbers. I spoke with Ms. Moyer that does, she's our catch-all IT, everything that she kind of does. And I spoke with her and I said, the numbers for the 2018, those can't be correct. I think the numbers for 2019 so far are spot on.
Okay.
There's not, and she looked at it, she goes, yeah, there has to be a mechanism on her end of whatever she's polling to gather those 2018 numbers. She was tied up on some other things, and she goes, can I get back with you? And I said, yes. So I'm reasonably certain I would have an answer for you at the next meeting.
So it looks like the 19 numbers are correct. It's going back and reevaluating the previous year's numbers to make sure they're correct.
Mm-hmm.
But I do, you probably will see an increase for, there's 2 very simple reasons. Number 1, we now have 5 people that are assigned here as opposed to 4. So you're going to have an increase with that.
Right.
You also have, like I said before, kind of coming under one umbrella, i.e. me, and some direction, make sure that we're documenting, our things like that, and just staying on. It's not an interpretation from 4 different shift supervisors. It's under 1 shift supervisor for the purposes of monitoring and just monitoring stats. So there's not like a crime reason of the business checks. It's more that we're going to put it down on paper.
More accurately. Well, and it's good for the citizens that listen in here to know that your presence is, and we do have statistics. And if any citizen wants to come in and look at the numbers of checks that the sheriff's office has done, we have that available, and that you're getting the numbers up to speed, that everything would be correct. So I appreciate that. Thank
Great,
you.
Thank you. All right. HR?
Thank you, Board. On page 44 of your packet begins the biweekly report for HR. Are there any questions?
I had none. Ms. Gustafson, thank you for all your work on the grant for the
One other thing
lift.
I just wanted to mention, on the grant is that in order to receive the funds from the WC, we have to order and have installed, within 90 days. We have to have all the lifts ordered and installed in 90 days.
We'll have it on the next agenda.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Within 90 days of when?
Of
Receiving the check, receiving what?
When the monies were deposited.
And they've been deposited?
Yes, according to Jan, I don't remember the date, it was last week or the week before.
Yeah, we have
Okay,
some
so the clock is ticking.
Yeah, we'll have it on the next agenda. I wanted to make sure that we had the presentations so you can actually see the product. It's one thing that we've done is if we're buying something new that's not, a fire engine, obviously, with a fire engine, but if there's some, like the Lucas
Yeah, Lucas devices.
CPR equipment, when we purchased those a couple years ago, we brought in and showed you the demo. Yeah, it's the CPR equipment was high price tag, so when we see that, we want to show you the value and how it works. So same thing with this, and of course, you've seen it once before. So
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
thank you, Board. On page 47 is the biweekly report. Are there for the zoning department? Are there any questions?
I had none, Ms. Wallace.
I didn't have any either. I just know that our staff has been very busy.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 52 of your packet is the IT biweekly report. Are there any questions?
Things seem to be running a little smoother.
Yes, they are with phase 1. We did sit down, and I think I mentioned this last meeting, but we are looking at phase 2 of the project the board originally approved when we looked at getting away from the citrus environment. So we'll have some of that probably by the end of first quarter. The priority is the firewall and getting that installed so we can start on phase 2.
Are we starting to do the download or the, install on the fiscal software?
They are scheduled in April. They're asking for another meeting with staff, so we're going to schedule that hopefully sometime in the next 2 weeks. I just got that request on Thursday after speaking with them at the conference I was at. They're excited to go ahead. Back to Business is creating its own virtual server, so we'll have that pretty much set up by next week, so it'll be way before their deadline in April to go ahead and install the software.
Oh, good.
Good.
There's 4 data points that we'll need out of UAN that we'll be working to get converted into SQL. And they're really just like vendor addresses and things like that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, road department?
Thank you, board. First item is a purchase request for a track loader. Budget justification with supporting documents is in your packet. It starts on 55 with a motion. This is a budgeted item that we talked about in the budget meetings.
So now we're getting attachments too with this?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So these attachments are only function with this, or?
They will function with this piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we're buying them now, with the original purchase of the track loader, we get the same discount as the machine, which is 32% off the list. Now, these are the 4 attachments we think we use on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
This machine, if there's an oddball attachment of some sort we need for a certain job, we should be able to get a Genia tool, Beavercreek or Bobcat of Dayton.
Right.
Just rent the tool instead of the machine and the tool,
That's good.
which will be a cost saving in the long run.
And I have one more question on this, and that is, I know that you work constantly with the city of Beavercreek on their equipment and stuff. Is this something that we'll have that they don't have, that we can share, or that they?
Actually, they have one, but they use theirs on a daily basis.
Okay.
One of the reasons that we kind of pushed this forward with the pavement planer, we've actually been using Sugar Creeks
Oh, okay.
the last several years. But because of sharing and the way we operate,
Yeah.
it's not cost effective anymore because we only get it for like 2 weeks and then they want it back because
Okay.
somebody else wants to borrow
Right.
it. So that's why we're springing up front for it, and we can do a lot more patching. There was a lot of patching we wanted to do last year, but we didn't have access.
I remember you discussing that. at
How
the meeting.
many skid steer loaders do we have now?
One.
This will be number 2?
Now, this will be
Number
the only one. we'll
The
have.
only one.
When this one comes in, we are gonna surplus.
You're gonna surplus the one we
The
have.
other one's in fairly good shape, so we should get it pretty good.
Well, we can't have all the attachments to it, that's
Yeah,
the
you
problem.
can't use the attachment.
That's what I remember reading here.
Basically a bucket, and it's the 4-wheel, and it doesn't have tracks.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
It tends to tear things up.
Right,
Thank you.
right. And I'm assuming this new one has all the new electric plugs too. Okay.
Actually, when we order it, it will be built to the specifications that.
Did I read that it has hand controls too, not just feet? It has hand controls. And why hand controls
A lot of
instead of
times-
just feet? My experience, the novice operators use hand controls. Your experienced operators use their feet.
We have a mix of operators. So this will let my least experienced guy use it for some of the stuff that we let them in the machine for.
Yeah, I would just encourage you to make sure that if they don't have a lot of hours on it, that they are told they use the hand controls.
Right.
So
Well,
they
you
don't
do
get
it-
what's called happy feet.
Right, and actually, to be honest with you, experienced guys, but then as time allows, what we do is put the younger guys,
They
send
have
them
to,
out back and say,
they've gotta learn.
move the dirt from here to there and move it back, just so that they get comfortable using it before we put them out on a job.
Now,
But I'm assuming too that you do train everybody on a new machine, no matter if they're old or new.
Correct.
yeah,
And everybody is given training.
you can train, but until you spend hours in
Oh,
there,
yeah.
it just, it's not, the training's not the same as it is actual time. Now, did I see we're just getting one bucket with teeth?
We're getting a bucket with bolt-on tube.
So the other bucket that we have do we have a smooth bucket too?
Well, we can take the teeth off. That's why we got these bolt-on too. So depending on what we wanna use it for, they'll come on and off, which is kinda what we do now with our track mill.
Right, so we don't have a second smooth bucket. Now, are we bolting them on individually, or are we using the bracket?
That I can't answer off the top of my head, but I can ask.
The bracket would be far cheaper than
And it all
long
depends on
time
what
labor.
we're doing, job.
Well, when it comes in, I'd like you to let me know. I'd like to come see the new piece of
We'll bring
equipment.
it down there.
Can I would just be
like we do,
curious.
once we like purchase some of those items that you approved, we like to bring it here at when it comes in.
I don't mind going out there, it's just that we're
I would be
enough
curious to
money
see how many times a year are we bolting and unbolting teeth?
It all depends on the job. I mean. we
Because
have-
that's got a cost, and an extra
it's part of the
bucket wouldn't
setup
be,
for a job.
an extra bucket wouldn't be that expensive.
I could go back and, probably.
I mean, if it saves 2 hours each time,
$193
$193 for the bolt-on.
for the bolt on.
The bucket is $903.64.
yeah, but I'm just saying, time bolting them, if it's something we do 20 times a year, we probably could have paid for a smooth bucket.
We could add, it if you would like.
Oh,
I would
wait a
just
minute.
No, I don't wanna, I just think of the time bolting and unbolting teeth. I mean, having to do that in a previous life, it was,
Yeah, more than likely, a lot of the times, we'll be using a smooth bucket, so the teeth will be off.
You can drop it down from 8 teeth to 4 teeth, and then they'd be toothless. Hearing no other questions, I would make a motion to approve purchase request 9697 to Clark Equipment Company, DBA Bobcat Company, for a T650 compact track loader with attachments in the amount not to exceed $78,500, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
second,
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
yes.
Thank you, board. Next is the contract renewal for the generators for the fire station. Budget justification starts on 54 with a motion on, or I'm sorry, 55 with a motion on page 56.
Mr. Parks, just for the public's viewpoint, I'd like you to state what this is going to do for the fire department, please.
Actually, what it does is twice a year, one time a year they come in and do a major service where they go through every component, make sure it's operational, and no repairs are needed.
On
Do
what?
changes on the standby generator.
Thank you.
which is the-
And how many do we have?
We have 4
Okay.
currently. And then they'll come back in second time during the year and do an inspection and change some of the minor fluids. And it's to make sure that the generators, the alarm system within the building, all work up to par so that when you need it, you hit the switch and they're ready to go. And actually it'll transfer on itself. Back during the windstorm several years ago, the
generator here at Station 61 ran for approximately 10 days to power this facility up. So we got power back here.
And our generators power our facilities 100%, or is there just certain areas?
Pretty much 100%. In some of the, most of the newer buildings, some of the older ones, powers just sections, but it makes the building operational, so.
And those come on once a week on their own?
For testing.
Once a week, and the other thing with this phone service agreement, that we get are discounted rates on labor, parts, and trucks.
Good.
And if I read correctly, just so for the benefit of everyone watching, there is no increase.
That is correct.
So you're able to negotiate.
Actually, they sent us the bill, and I called and I said, we only had a 12-month agreement. I need you to send me the agreement. She goes, well, there's no charge or no change in cost. I said, this is government. This is how we do it, so.
Good
Good.
job.
Good job.
Okay.
Hearing no other questions, I make a motion to approve plan maintenance agreement and purchase request 9698 to Buckeye Power Sales for biannual and discount on repairs in an amount not to exceed $3,200, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item on page 66 is the biweekly report for the road department. Are there any questions?
I did not have any questions.
None.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Mr. Parks.
First item is on page 66 for the fire department is to go ahead and surplus equipment. There's a list of surplus equipment that we're recommending for surplus. Also, it is attached to the resolution. And you can just, as presented, if the board would like.
We had a lot of surplus.
Yes.
Oh, I know, I had
Matter
some
of fact,
questions.
if you walk through the back halls here, you'll see most of it stacked up and.
Ready to go.
Get rid of it, yes.
What I had a question on the surplus list is, instead of, when you say unfit for use, a chair, is that saying it's broken? You cannot use it, instead of saying not needed for public use?
It depends, and the crews are usually pretty good, so if it says unfit for use, it is probably broken or beyond repair, or reasonable repair.
And we can still sell those, because people want them for parts.
You would be amazed at the things that people will buy that we put up for sale.
Okay.
We ask the crews to be pretty specific. Those are the specific statutory categories for surplus. So we ask them to pick the most appropriate, and they're really good at it.
So are we selling anything broken? And do we have any liability there if we are?
Almost everything that,
Yeah, it says as is on the, on Gov Deals. It clearly spells out a big legal section.
Yeah, that's to follow up, Mr. Roberts, because like you have a washer and a dryer for a dishwasher, unfit for use. So,
The township doesn't have a liability. It's through Gov Deals, so once you surplus, it goes on Gov Deals.
And then
There's a whole
it's
disclaimer on there, and it is as is on the,
and I was surprised, and there's a lot of washers and dryers and dishwashers. Are they just so old, and are we buying all new ones here, or what's happening here, that this many are being gotten rid of?
They've already been replaced. And
Okay.
So these are ones that have been pulled out of service. And we just
They've been sitting around.
Yes, they're probably taking no space in one of the Mr. Park's locations, I'm guessing. We just haul them down here.
so they're next door. They're right in the room.
All right, so this is something that we're not looking at replacing a lot of the stuff we've already done.
Replaced it, now we need to get rid of the junk that we have already replaced.
Okay,
And I think as we go through, we do this, we collect, and then do a big disperse. But as we go along, we're replacing or upgrading as per scheduled events, but then we only do this periodically when we get enough to bulk.
so there's a lot here to bulk.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Have
So
a nice
it's one of
clean-
many, because we have a big spring cleaning planned with the big buildings.
Good.
Yep.
Get this stuff out of there and get those rooms cleaned up. Hearing no other questions, anybody? I would propose, make a motion for a resolution finding certain township equipment to be surplus and to dispose of it. Need to read this whole?
Just say as
Just,
presented.
As presented, as written?
I'll second that.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you, board. Next item is on page 68, the bi-weekly report for the fire department. Are there any questions?
I did have one update for you, and it's not in the past, it's in the future. So this Wednesday through Friday, we will be doing some live fire training. You may have noticed the Zini burn trailer out back. You're welcome to join us if you like, for observation or participation if you feel up to it. So it'll be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 9 to 5. They'll be doing most likely 2 sessions, a morning and an afternoon session. But you're welcome to come down anytime. If you see smoke, they're out there working. If you don't see anybody, they're probably in here doing the classroom portion before they head out. But we'd love to see if you have the opportunity to stop by.
That's a trailer where they have all the smoke and you go in kind of blind and.
Yeah, and actually, they have fire in there.
And fire, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's the same
Been there,
one that
done that.
you saw at the Fire Ops 101 at Xenia had
Right.
the trailer out there.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yes, exactly the same.
That's the one I had to pick up the axe because Mr. Stone left it there and I had to pick up a 65-pound axe.
And this will be our first opportunity to work with our new hires. So
Good.
all the new hires will be participating with us in the live burn. And as of this past Saturday, all but the most recent 2 new hires are out of the stations and in operation. So appreciate your support.
And then again, the trailer is from
City of Xenia.
City of Xenia. And many thanks to our friends
Yeah,
there
Yes,
as
for.
a
thank
part
you.
of their grant, when they wrote it, they would make it available to area communities. So it's been an asset for us. This is the 4th time we've used it.
Probably so,
Yeah, since Xenia got the grant.
It's a huge advantage for us because, first of all, we don't have to leave the district to do the training, unlike if the times we go to, say, the city of Dayton. And then it's also a very clean burn, so we're not using solid combustibles like Excelsior straw or wood. It's all gas, and so the burn is very clean, so the crews can get in and out and cleaned up very quickly.
Wonderful. And then our day of caring breakfast was a huge success.
Yes.
So, many thanks to our wonderful auxiliary and honestly to Mr. and Mrs. Kretz, and anyone who volunteered and spent time there. It was
Our explorers were there also.
our explorers were there also working. It was a wonderful turnout, so something definitely to build upon, and I know the community appreciates it. Thanks for pass on our thanks for that. Anything else for fire?
Nope.
All right.
Thank you, board. That's
Jim.
all I have for you.
Ms. Frick?
Nothing.
Ms. Aaron's?
No, thank you.
MVRPC update?
I have several things to update. First of all, I want to publicly say to my condolences for Mr. Brian Martin for the loss of his wife of only 53 years old. It was a tragic loss for him, and we all felt it at the MVRPC meeting. The next meeting will be canceled, and there is the MVRPC annual dinner in April, so want to make you aware of that. During the MVRPC meeting, the board as a whole endorsed the 18.7% gas tax increase based on the information that we received on how our funding would be on a lot of our projects. Obviously, that day, both houses changed it to a 10 point, I think was it 10.7?
10.7. It passed the House.
And it passed. But I wanted at least the trustees to be aware of what went on in that meeting and how we voted. So I have a packet to pass on. And there's more information about the Ohio transportation funding problem. So I thought I'd pass that on to my fellow trustees. In addition, I'm bringing forward to the trustees the budget and work program for the MVRPC organization as a whole, so that you can review these things. We pay for the public, we pay a dues to be part of that organization. It gives us a lot of availability on grants and proposed funding for our infrastructure. But, this is a detailed document that I can have, here, that shows where every dollar goes for every, county and township and city. So I thought I'd lean that forward. And then I'm sure that Mr. Amarin, knows about the Planning and Zoning Board Essentials Workshops. It's gonna be on March 21st, March 28th, and April 4th. And I thought if the administrator and/or trustees were interested in going to any of these events, it's a discounted rate for being a member. And that is all I have for the MVRPC.
Wonderful.
Just one thing to add in regards to the gas tax, the House did pass the 10.7 increase that would be phased in. They did two things for townships, in addition to the original proposal, which was, they were asking all the Ohio Township Association, the Municipal League, the Greene County, or the County Association, whatever the title is for that, to support it. As you are aware, last biennial budget, the counties were able to get a $5 increase on the driver license tax for the license plates, and left out cities and townships. They added that back in the House. The other difference in the House was taking a 5% share from the state that they would keep and allocate that 5% back to the local jurisdictions. So that's the only kind of modifications that came out in the House version. We'll see if they'll get added or passed in the Senate version.
Okay. Wonderful. And I also want to pass on from Lori and I our deepest condolences to Brian and his family. That was tragic. TAC?
No meeting, there's one this month anyway.
That's next week.
Regional planning last month was canceled. We should have a meeting here in a couple weeks.
I'm talking about the regional planning, though. Mr. Kugler did have a regional planning meeting for all those that are members of MVRPC, in the headquarters over on Dayton Xenia Road. And Green Cats made a presentation on the changing of routes. During that, the meeting was scheduled for the census that is coming up in 2020 to get everybody in Greene County on the same page on realizing how important the census is in 2020, and that each person that does not sign up for the census, you lose about $1,200 per head from the federal monies that come to the townships and the cities. So we're going to mount a strong effort in Greene County to make sure that we count as many heads as we can in order for Greene County and all its cities and townships and jurisdictions to receive as much money as we can for the programs that help our citizens. So that was what the meeting was about, and to get us all on the same page.
That was not the normal place.
That is, it was at the regional county
It was at the office.
at the
Yeah,
board,
so
the old Board of Elections building.
Yeah.
Got it.
They invited the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission members from Greene County to come to that
Right.
meeting to discuss it.
So it was
So there's
really
not an
worthwhile.
overlap between
What you
Greene
do.
County's doing and what
Got
Miami
it.
Valley's
Right.
doing.
Because Montgomery County right now, they have all their committees all assigned and volunteers all.
Yeah.
We didn't have a clue because
Yeah.
we just found out about it, so we're on.
In the
Mr.
county,
Kugler's getting on.
we signed the letter earlier, last year at the beginning, is that the county Regional Planning Commission office will be handling that for the township, so.
Correct.
We do have a representative, once
Right.
they start having meetings, we'll have a seat at the table, if you will.
Good.
Okay. So we know there's no health update. Superintendent, city manager?
Been meeting a lot with superintendent and the city manager at the facilities meeting, community facilities meetings for the schools. So there are public meetings. You can go to the school's website. I believe there's one tonight, tomorrow night, and Wednesday night. This is for more of the community to take a look at some of the ideas that are coming out from the school board, school staff, and these public meetings that I've been attending, to see what the citizens provide some input. That'll come back to us on April 1st. We will then, and there's probably 40-some of us on that committee, we will then then make a recommendation to the, of our findings to the school board. And then the school board will have to make a decision on what direction they go in. Right now, we're kind of down to 3 options for the school board. We would like to narrow that down based on the citizens' input at the next 3 meetings. City manager and I attended the Ohio City and County Managers Association Conference last week. Attended some great, had some great speakers, as well as some of the legislation that is going on. And some of the things that OCMA is going to recommend to the County Association, the Township Association, and the Ohio Municipal League as moving forward as priorities. But it was good turnout, good mix of township administrators and city managers. City manager and I in our monthly meeting also discussed potentially looking at a joint road project at the intersection of Alpha Bellbrook and Indian Ripple and modifying that intersection, which I did pass on to them that we'll know a little bit more in the biannual budget this summer. Because now that we have a strong presence from Ohio University, there are some state funds available for road projects for the universities. We will be able to access those funds or put a project forward through that. So the city is interested in that and working with us and Ohio University to modify that intersection.
Yeah, and Indian Ripple itself,
Yeah,
it's pretty bad right now.
Yeah.
So-
Indian Ripple Alpha Bell, yeah. I mean, I've had, in the last 6 months, 2 semis that I know of.
Yeah, it's very
One was
difficult.
able to get itself out, the other one
Yeah.
could not.
Right, and making if you're heading westbound from the township side to make a right-hand turn
Yes.
onto South Alpha Bellbrook,
Yes.
that's almost impossible. It's bad enough in a vehicle. I
truck
can't
and-
imagine on a larger size truck or even a semi. So we have had this conversation. I know with staff, Lynn has reached out to this city engineer, Jeff Norman, and so we took it to the next level. Since at staff level there was some ideas of moving forward, and so we'll get all the players.
Well,
in the
yeah,
room.
as that campus expands and builds up, it's gonna be more and
There's
more.
gonna be a lot of traffic, and I
But
did
now
hear
by the
that-
same token, with the other land they have, they're, possibly also have additional access, which would help.
And that's one of the things
But-
we discussed for if they have an increase of semi-traffic to the facility is potentially adding an entrance earlier than what is planned off of Alpha Bellbrook to allow the semi-truck to, almost like in a one-way direction. depending on how
That
far
would
it
make
takes them out
sense.
to Indian Ripple. So those are the discussions the 3 of us have been having.
Okay. Township Association?
And we have a meeting tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night's the
yeah.
engineers dinner.
Yeah. Mr. Kretz isn't here. Do we have anything to report on investment oversight? We're seeing Mr. Anzick next meeting, correct?
You know what, we have been playing phone tag, so it's in the works, but I don't have it, it will not be, I don't think, next time. But I am talking to him, so we just keep missing each other.
Well, I would, if there's any way to somehow run that down, I would appreciate it. Cause
I'm
that's
supposed
gonna be
to,
the end of March.
yeah, which normally wait till after the first quarter, so, I mean, we're on track. I'm not worried about it, but
Okay. Ms. Aarons, anything further?
not for me.
Ms. Wallace,
No?
did you have a
Happy
question?
St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Coming up.
Coming up.
Coming up. I had nothing either, so with that, thank you all for coming, and we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second?
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.